Good afternoon, Miss Erica Storm. How you doing? You well?
I'm very well, Joelle. How are you?
I'm blessed, always, in always. All the pleasure, all the better, so I should say, for sitting with you this afternoon, because when we first met at the Voice newspaper's 40th anniversary celebrations at West End, you and I had a conversation about your journey, the stuff that you've been up to over the last, 15, 20 years, and just kind of where it's brought you up to today. And I found it fascinating. So I said it on the night that we'd share it. So here we are to talk about what you're involved in. I'd like to get, stuck into your journey straight away, but I know there's a few things bubbling away that you're working on. Some you can talk about, some you can't. But what's important to you at the moment from a business perspective before we let our viewers and listeners know who you are?
Yeah, well, first, I just want to say it's such an honor to be here with The Voice newspaper. It's a paper that I've grown up with. My family always read it. So it really is an honor to be here. So thank you so much, Joelle, for inviting me and sharing this amazing platform with me. I'm working on a few things. The main thing is I am studying to be a psychosexual therapist, which is being a very challenging and interesting journey. I have faced some very difficult challenges being a Black woman in this sort of area. So I'm learning how to work through that, but I'm gonna stick with it because I feel that Black women and women of color, Black people in general, need to take up these spaces. So I'm not just doing it for me, I'm doing it for my nieces, and I'm doing it for all those other young women coming up after me. I just qualified as a yoga teacher, which is an amazing accomplishment for myself. It's been my own personal journey because being a yoga teacher and practicing yoga allowed me to sit more in my feminine energy. And it was a great way for me to heal. But then I also realized that I was the only Black person in this arena. In any yoga place that I go to, any yoga studio, I'm always the only Black person. And when I speak to my sisters about yoga and the healing that comes from yoga, they're like, oh, Black people do yoga. I'm like, yes, we do. And it's such a powerful way to heal. And talking on the topic of healing, I'm healing my womb from fibroids, which I know a lot of women, especially women of color, are facing at the moment. So many women are getting hysterectomies, suffering really, really badly with fibroids or PCOS. And I found that through my own healing journey, doing yoga has really helped me. And it's helped me with my own trauma as well. And since the recent things that have been happening in my life with the area that I'm now working in, I realized that I face so much stress on a daily basis. And I've come so accustomed to it that I didn't even realize that I was in trauma. So doing yoga just really allowed me to just exhale and breathe and allow myself to be really, really vulnerable. So everything that I've always done in my business has always been a reflection of what I'm personally going through in my life. So hence the Strut Master class, which got huge success. We got featured in the Metro newspaper. I then became the face of Ann Summers, which was absolutely amazing. I did a show called 10 Years Younger in 10 days, where I taught this beautiful Black woman how to own her space, how to walk correctly in her high heel shoes. So it was a great platform to show the power of my Strut Masterclass. But the reason why I created that, Joelle, was because I went to like 7 different schools, right? And I was always the tall girl, so I always stood out. So I learned from a very, very young age that it's all about how you hold yourself when you walk into that room. And I realized that so many other women are unafraid of taking up space. And that was how my Strut Masterclass was born.
Well, let me stop you there. So how tall are you? Because there's going to be people who can't gauge it from the fact you're sitting down.
I'm 5'11", without heels now.
All right. And you said you went to how many schools?
7.
Okay, we're going to get into that in a second. When I got sent the PR, from the lovely Julia Champion at her company, her organization, what struck me was what it said at the bottom, insofar as Miss Erica believes every woman should feel sexy and confident. She continues to empower women one strut at a time. You've already touched on the Strut Masterclass, but I'm interested in where your own personal strut began, right? When did you decide that this was the path that you wanted to, I'm going to use it again, strut along in order to reach where you are now? I'm coming at it from a very light-hearted perspective because I know there's pain in this journey. Start where you may.
Yeah, well, before I embarked on this journey, I was living a very, very different lifestyle. And I was successful, but I wasn't happy. And I read in a book once that said, do the one thing that comes most natural to you. That's supposed to be the thing that you're supposed to do. So I went through this whole list. I mean, I even do it now, continue to write down what is my purpose, what comes really natural to me. And so many things came to me. And then the one thing that really resonated with me is the way that I walk. So when I used to go out, whether I've been in a restaurant, walking down the street, people would always compliment me on my walking. So I thought, well, what is it about my walking that's so impactful? And I was like, it's because I walk into a space like I deserve to be there. And then the more I spoke to women about it, the more they resonated with my story. The more they were like, yeah, like I feel really shy to take up space. Oh, I'm too short, or I'm too tall, or I'm too big. And I was like, no, I need to create something. I need to create a safe space where all these different types of women from all different types of backgrounds can come together and celebrate taking up space. But I wanted to do it in a really fun way. Now, we all love heels. Well, I'm the type of woman that I love my heels. And I know so many women that do love heels and don't wear heels because they don't feel comfortable or confident enough to wear them, right? Because where do you go to learn how to walk in heels? We just see all these fabulous stilettos. No one to teach us how to walk in heels, right? And it is a skill, Joelle, right? I must add, it is a skill. So I created this Strut Masterclass. I remember doing my very first one. And I created all the different struts in my bedroom. I like to visualize things. So I sat in my bedroom and I was thinking about all these different ways that I could help women to express different parts of their personality. So we have the power strut, we have the seductive strut, we have the pussycat strut, we have 5 different struts. And each strut has its own different personalities. So one strut you can use, the power strut, is to how you walk into a boardroom, how you walk into an interview, how you walk in and really own that space in a feminine but very strong way. And that's how it just all came alive. And I remember doing my first one thinking, no one's going to want another one. Then people started asking, when's the other one coming? So I put on another one on the next month. And I was thinking, am I getting away with this? This is something that I've literally just created in my bedroom, right? I remember saving up and spending like literally the last bit of my money going into the studio and just testing out all these different struts that I had visualized in my mind, in my meditation, not knowing if it was going to work, but knowing that it felt really powerful to me. And if I felt powerful doing it, I thought it's all about energy, right? And if I come into this with a clean heart and my intentions are to empower these women, then that's what they're going to get from that. But then what I also did was I added on affirmations, because growing up, I had to tell myself, my parents always told me about affirmations, right? They always instilled into me who I was. And I didn't realize that I did that on a subconscious level. But because I knew that people needed to find out how I am able to walk into a space and be confident, I really had to peel back all the layers that made me confident, right? And affirmations is one of them. So the women come to a studio, it's fully mirrored. I teach them how to hold their presence. And then I tell them to look at themselves in the mirror. And for so many women, Joelle, I didn't realize until I started working in this industry that they just don't look at themselves in the mirror. Most of them didn't even own a full-length mirror. And here they were, standing in front of the mirror, saying, I am enough, saying, I deserve to take up space. And that was really powerful. And we had so many different emotions come through. Women felt able and safe enough just to cry and to release all that anxiety and shame that they were carrying around for so many years. And several years later, I'm still here teaching women how to strut in their heels.
So that's the journey of the classes.
What's
the journey? What's your journey before that? What are you doing in your life prior to finding that runway?
So I'm originally from Tulsa Estate, and as I told you, I went to 7 different schools, and myself, I had a lot of trauma that I didn't deal with. I could say it's trauma now because I've reflected and I've worked on myself, but I didn't know what it was then. So here I am growing up as a young Black girl in London, just trying to find myself. And I found an industry that accepted me for who I was, who I thought I was, right? I was projecting this really strong, dominant person. And someone asked me the other day, like, where did this confidence really come from? And I can honestly say now, it came from a place of survival. I had to be confident. I grew up in an estate. If you wasn't comfortable with yourself and you didn't project confidence, you would have got eaten alive. So for many years, I went through bullying. As I said, I went to 7 different schools. I was fighting every day. It actually still makes me quite emotional.
Yeah, of course.
Because sometimes I feel like we don't actually realize the trauma that we're going through. Mm-hmm. And then we just keep masking it and masking it and masking it. So I became a renowned international dominatrix, because if I was going to do anything, I was going to do very well at it. And the reason why I believe I fell in love with it was because now I was being honored and respected for being this tall, beautiful, strong Black woman. Whereas before, I was penalized for it. I was bullied for it. I was shamed for it.
Miss Erica, that's quite a jump, right? How do you segue from turning that negative into your perceived positive? Where does the light bulb come on in that moment there, in that middle ground there?
Because one day I just remember lying in my bed and I said to myself, I can no longer allow my past to dictate my future. And I just decided to fight for my life. That's exactly what happened. And I woke up that day and I decided that day that I was no longer going to take drugs. I was no longer going to consume myself with alcohol and just fueling the pain, right? I wanted to tear that bandage off, and I wanted to start the journey of healing. And that first step was decided in that moment to save my life. And that's how I became Miss Erica Storm.
Miss Erica, how old were you when you made that decision?
Well, I'm 39 now. So this must have been about 15 years ago. Sometimes my timing isn't very accurate. I do this thing where, because I've been through so much trauma, my brain has this power to kind of erase certain things from my memory. So sometimes I might say 10 years, sometimes I might say 15 years. I can't really give you the accurate time, but I know it was that time where I was laying in my bed and all I had in my fridge was champagne and orange juice. And I said to myself, this is not what I was created for. And I got up. I mean, I was earning lots of money, right? So when I was coming home, people were going out to work. So I could sleep all day. I could sleep for a whole week and go out for one day and still make enough money that most people made in a month, right? So that was very damaging, because I could just sleep and sleep and sleep. And that's why now I'm so anal about the times that I wake up. I now wake up between 5 and 6 o'clock in the morning and I have a cold shower and I make my bed. How I jumped from that moment of wanting to save my life, I started working out, I started going to the gym. And the more I went to the gym, the less I wanted to smoke, the less I wanted to take drugs, the less I wanted to drink, right? Started going once a week, then it was twice a week, then I started going twice a day. And then I met a woman and she was like, I've seen you come to the gym, like your determination, your focus is amazing. And I really enjoyed that. That was my first glimpse of me empowering and inspiring other people, right? And I absolutely loved it. But what she didn't know was I was just trying to save my life, right? I no longer wanted to take drugs. I no longer wanted to have that lifestyle for myself. Then she told me about this competition and she said, why don't you do bodybuilding? And I was like, bodybuilding? And she's like, no, it's called the Diva Bikini section. I was like, Diva Bikini section? Okay, where do I sign up? I'm really one of those people that once I decide to do something, I literally immerse myself in it. And of course, it was another fight because back then I had shaved hair, tattoos, and I remember several trainers saying to me, you will never place. Black women like you don't place. Have you thought about wearing a wig or this or that? And something in that conversation triggered me. And I was like, I'm always fighting to be myself because my presence makes you feel uncomfortable. And I was tired of it. And I said to myself, if I'm going to win being me. And if I'm going to lose being me. I went through 3 different trainers because none of them believed in me.
Take your time, man.
Because I was someone coming in who's never trained before. And it's a very hard competition. I did the WBFF and it's in the O2 in London. And women train for this for years and never a place, right? So here I was saying, yeah, I'm going to do it. And I did it. And I walked on that stage and I received my medal. And that is really where everything started to change. I'm so sorry.
I take your time. It's all right, and I appreciate you sharing. And as I said, I know there was various different points that are punctuated with pain, and that's one of the things that struck me when we first met. You were so propelled by it. You were so willing to turn that pain into purpose. And all I could see in that moment when we met was somebody whose height, that was it really, is what separated your life's journey from everybody else, which I just found bizarre, but it doesn't matter what I find it's you that's telling the story. And one of the things that you shared on the day, just to kind of segue into, and just for those who are watching and listening, Miss Erica and I are going to catch up again later in the year when a project she's working on comes to fruition. It's in the pipeline at the moment. She can't speak much about it for legal reasons, but it's quite exciting. It's with a terrestrial broadcaster, so look out for that. But one of the things that you told me about when we first met, Miss Erica, was being featured in Louis Theroux's documentary on Channel 4, Sex Actually.
Yeah.
And just in and amongst everything else, I like Louis Theroux. I think he's a very intriguing character. And followed his documentary making style for a number of years. So that's kind of one of the reasons why I was really intrigued by him. But just the fact you featured in that show, just along with everything else that you told me in that night, was really interesting. But it's also just one of the programs you've been on, right? So talk about how you've turned that pain into purpose and where you are now with it and just some of the things you've experienced.
It has been the most amazing journey, right? Every single one of my services that I offer has now been televised. Everything that I have created has been created by myself, a whole new idea, a whole new concept, right? And it's not so much the pain. It's more of the self-belief of who I am. And knowing that I have the right to be my authentic self, meaning that I myself can create this. And even though so many people were like, it's never going to work, don't swear, don't wear thigh-high boots, don't let people know you're a dominatrix. And I just remained that thing that I told myself, if I'm going to win, I'm going to win being me. And if I'm going to fail, I'm going to fail being me. And my vibe would attract my tribe. And that's what's happened. From being featured for Ann Summers to being on Channel 4. I think I've been on Channel 4 twice now. One for my Strut Master class, the other one because they were interested in my life as a dominatrix and how I was able to take such a taboo subject and mainstream it, and how I was able to use the mistress training as a branch out to women to help them with self-acceptance, how to articulate their desires, how to be assertive, but how to remain feminine at the same time. So I get loads of women who work in the corporate world, from lawyers to CEOs, wanting the skills to how to assert themselves in a very dominant world. And they found that mistress training liberated them from that. So everything I do, there's always an undertone to it. And the undertone to it is always women empowerment, empowering you to use your voice, empowering you to accept who you are for yourself. And that's probably why it's been so successful. And then my new project with my retreats, my goodness, that just blew me away. I remember putting it on my vision board. I was training to be a yoga teacher. This is only a few months ago, by the way. And I came back from my yoga training because it was abroad, and some of it, we call it in immersion, that was abroad. And I came back and I looked at my vision board and it had this retreat, and it had to do it in 2023. And I thought to myself, what am I scared of? Let's just do it now. And I put on the retreat and it was sold out in like 4 days. I had this amazing woman called Bibi Lynch, who's followed my work for many, many years. And she came along to my retreat and she had such a profound experience that she wrote about it for the Metro newspaper. And she had said that she had not worn a bikini for 10 years. And that after spending just an afternoon with me at my retreat, she was able to go to Brighton Beach and wear a bikini. And she hadn't done that for 10 years. Thank you. So from that article, Elle magazine then reached out to me. They heard about my great work at the retreat. Then the TV company reached out to me because they heard about my work from the retreat. And it's just continuing to grow.
Just the way that your career has gone so far, I don't even know what the future holds for you, and how far you can take it. I do wonder though, right? How does being a dominatrix, how is that received by our own community? I can imagine the responses are varied.
To be honest with you, I've only ever got positive vibes. When I first came out, I was really overwhelmed by how many messages I got saying thank you. I was like, thank you. I didn't even see it as me being a Black dominatrix, right? I'm just me being me. But so many messages were saying, thank you for taking up space in this area. Thank you for talking about it. Thank you for showing us that it's not just for white people, that we can explore this as well, right? Like I sound like them. I'm from ends, right? So they really resonated with me. So I've only ever got good stuff from it, but I also think it's because of how I've also conducted myself as well. I've always used my platform to educate, inform, and empower. And I've just taken my role really seriously because I know that representation is important.
Yeah, clearly that's how this conversation started, really, with your pursuit for the academic. I forget the title, excuse me, I didn't catch it all. What was it?
That's okay. I'm training to be a clinical psychosexual therapist.
Right. Do you want to delve into, I guess what that actually deals with on a day-to-day for the layperson who's sitting down there thinking, I can't even Google that, let alone start to understand it?
Yes. So a psychosexual therapist would be a therapist that would help you with erectional dysfunctions, would help with marriage, relationships, your sexual relationships. It would also help women who may have had sexual trauma. So you would go to a psychosexual therapist for that. It's pretty much what I'm doing at the moment, because my area is as a sex confidence coach. I help women heal from sexual trauma, as well as help them be sexually liberated. But it was really important for me to study it. I come from a psychology background anyway. I'm a clinical hypnotherapist and a clinical neurolinguistic practitioner. So I've always been really fascinated about the brain. But I felt it was important to not just be visible, but to be educated, because education is power. And I've been tested so much, and it's been very, very challenging, but I'm going to stick with it, because when you're able to talk statistics and when you're able to quote certain facts, then they have no choice but to hear you. So I wanted to combine my years, as a dominatrix for over a decade. I wanted to take that and I wanted to combine my years of confidence coaching and add the yoga training, which has made such an impact already on women's lives, because the body holds the trauma, the body holds the memories. So at the moment, I'm combining the coaching with the yoga, allowing women to breathe through their yoni, heal themselves, because there's something happening. There's so many Black women with fibroids. Now, if we're continuing to go through trauma in a society that doesn't give us any safe spaces to heal or to allow ourselves to be vulnerable, this disease is going to get worse and worse and worse. There was a situation where I don't want to go too much into it, because I still have to be in that environment. So I want to talk my truth, but I also have to protect the path that I am going down, because I will be damned if they stop me from doing that. But
I was going to say, well, don't block your own blessings then, but do as you must.
Yes, but what I will say is that I felt like I wasn't allowed to be vulnerable. You see, it's easier for them to stereotype me as this angry Black woman. It's easier for them to deal with their own bullshit if they just see me as a strong Black woman. But you see, when you show vulnerability, which by the way is great strength, it makes them feel uncomfortable. Can you believe that someone told me that my vulnerability triggered them, and now they're scared to interact with me? And then started crying. So on my reflection of that, I'm going to continue to be vulnerable, because being vulnerable allows me to sit more in my feminine energy. It allows me to have better relationship with my brothers. It allows me to have better romantic relationships, and it allows me to heal and to continue to heal my wound.
Miss Erica, I did say there was a lot to cover.
Yes.
let's consider this a part one. And where can, for those who are intrigued by what they've heard in this part one, where can they find out more about you? Where can they follow you on a day-to-day basis?
Well, I do have an Instagram account. I've taken some time away from my Instagram just because I'm studying, and like I said, I'm going through something at the moment and I just needed time to reflect. But they can follow me on Instagram at Miss Erica Storm. They can also visit my website, which is www.missericastorm.co.uk. And I also have a new YouTube channel called Ask Miss Erica. and they can go and check that out. I will be releasing more videos in the April-May time where they can literally send me in any questions they want to know about how to be comfortable in their body, how to be confident, how to feel sexy and liberated, help with their relationship with themselves, because that's the first important relationship is with yourself. So they just send in those questions to Ask Miss Erica on my YouTube, or they can email me at info@misserica.storm.co.uk.
More power to you. We'll speak soon.
Thank you so much for having me, Joelle.